So, welcome to the Course in Miracles study group for November 2021, nearly be Christmas. And today we're going to talk about the thyroid, circle of fear, and what that means for the course. So if you have an autoimmune disease or you know somebody that has, and they're doing the course or they're interested in spirituality, this might actually give you some good information. I'm also going to do a video on the three brains, the heart, the head and the tummy, the gut, and that'll be coming out shortly, which will go into much more detail. So how this begun, well, it's all about me as always. You might be able to see I've got a little lump, a cyst there, which is nothing, but having that checked out, I then discovered, or they're trying to diagnose me with Hashimoto's disease, which is a low thyroid function disease, on which you then have to go on medication for life. So that's a big no-no for me, and also I believe that the mind creates the body, and therefore it has a psychosomatic cause. So as soon as they said that to me, I started looking for the psychosomatic cause, or, you know, how the course would teach me to deal with this. So I'm just going to go back over a little bit for the new people that are here. I won't be able to go into this in detail, but there is a video on this if you want to look it up. So we have discovered from the course that this, if you like, is the structure of our reality. So we have God, and the Holy Spirit is the voice for God, the bridge between us, our true self, our Christ self, and the other parts of us. Now everything is triad, everything is in threes, isn't it? So we have God, Holy Spirit, and the Christ. Now this is above the veil, if you like, okay? So not in our material reality, apart from the voice of the Holy Spirit, which also exists in this circle of fear, which I believe is your subconscious, or the ego, if you like. And so I've denoted that by this little red spot here, because within the light, within the dark, there's always the doorway for the light, if you think about the yin-yang symbol, which is the voice of the Holy Spirit. And the circle of fear, our subconscious, projects up onto this body, which is a pseudo-self. So for me, it's Theresa. I think I'm Theresa with all my characteristics and failures and all of this kind of stuff. And that's because I'm run by the big 95% of my mind, which is the subconscious. That's mainstream psychology. Your conscious mind is only about 5 to 7%. So this is what's actually running my life. And it's almost, you could say, running me like a puppet, because it's what feeds into me, making me do certain things. But if you pay attention, in your brain, you have two voices all of the time. Oh, I want to do this, but I should do this, but don't get on that train, don't get on that train. And still the ego goes, you've got to get on the train because we've got to get to the bank, or whatever it may be. So there's the voice of the Holy Spirit that's always there against the negative voice of the ego. So this pseudo-self, it's not really you, the Christ self is really you. This pseudo-self is the experiencer, or you could say the effect, which means the cause is this circle of fear, or the subconscious, and it's like a projector projecting up. So does all that make sense, basically? As I say, there's a lot more to that, but I haven't got time to go into that today. Okay, so when I went to the doctors, I asked him to draw me or explain to me exactly what this thyroid issue is about, so that I could work on it myself. And what he drew was this, interestingly. Now, if you look on the internet, thyroid and that, it's always, or usually, depicted as a butterfly. But he didn't draw a butterfly, he drew a heart, a mini heart, which really keyed something within me. It's a big clue. And basically he drew what was in green, that it's a feedback cycle. So here is the pituitary gland, or the hypothalamus, which the thyroid sends information up to the pituitary gland about how it's doing and metabolism and all that kind of stuff. And that's then the pituitary gland sends out the amount of TSH, which you don't need to know about, thyroid hormone, down to the thyroid. So it's a feedback loop. Talking to, giving, receiving, however you want to describe it. Okay? And he said you've got a negative feedback loop. So because the messages are not getting from the little heart here to the pituitary gland, it thinks that it needs to work harder and send more hormone down. It's almost like it's got nothing to say. So it says, right, okay, then, well, I better give you some more energy, if you like. So then your TSH levels go up and up and up, and the higher your TSH level, the lower your thyroid function. That's how they test for it. So I'm just borderline. It should be between 12 and 22, and I'm 11 and a half, so it's not, major. And the pituitary gland sends the messages to turn on the cells, which then increase your metabolism, decrease it, or whatever needs to happen in the body. So it's almost like this mini heart has lost its voice, which that phrase keyed against something huge within me. So the pituitary gland is, the thyroid is about growth, metabolism, reproduction, and heart issues, which are all interesting for my life and my history. And I like to play with the words. So cyst, backwards, remember the Y could be U, Y-O-U. You remember we did that before. And so if we put that as a U instead of the Y-O-U and reverse it, because everything in the course needs to be inverted, remember reversed, we get stuck. And that's what cyst is. It's stuck energy, stuck emotion, whatever that may be. So I looked around what my stress is in life at that point. Now, at that point, family issues were coming up again. So I thought I'd dealt with this a million times, but here they are back again. So I was going through a period where my family, because they all live together down, in Kent, and I'm only here on my own. I'm the middle child, poor me, always left out syndrome, all of that kind of stuff. And it's highlighted because they're even closer together. In locality, mentally, everything, like I don't drink anymore, they love drinking, all of this kind of stuff. There's huge separation there now. And when I talk, because I like to talk about this kind of stuff and that, or I'm always trying to help someone, they're always rolling their eyes, or they talk over me, they're just like, it's like I don't exist there sometimes, so I just shut up. And most of the time it doesn't bother me, but it started to bother me again. And we'd had a few nights out and lunches and things, and we'd arrange a time, and they'd be like 20 minutes, 40 minutes late, no apology or anything, no worry about me sitting there on my own. So the resentment is building and building and building. I'm trying to deal with it every day, do my work, clear it or let it go, forgive and all this. But when an issue won't go, I know I'm going to get a big lesson from it, which is what I have. And then I realised, I'm just a seat at the table. I'm just like someone to go out with. That's how I felt at these lunches, If I didn't go, they'd make a big fuss. And the two different intentions were, I go to lunch because if I never went, I'd never see them. They never come here, it's too far and all of this kind of stuff. So I always have to make the effort to go. So for me, lunch is about seeing my family, connecting, union, communion, communication in union, all of the cool stuff. For them, it's to feed their faces and drink as much as possible in a couple of hours, right? But that is how they see the lunch. They don't see it as important to me in that way. They just, as we all do, we're all selfish. I know, I say that all the time. So I have this, I was getting this, they don't love me, they're rejecting me, I'm alone, a little bit of jealousy, all of that kind of stuff. And then I also noticed that I'm doing a lot of negative speaking as well because of all of this building work that's going on. It's been horrendous and they never turn up when they say they're going to turn up. And if they turn up, I'm working and then it's not done properly and all of this kind of stuff. So I'm always having these negative conversations with these builders and all of this kind of stuff. So the course is everything to me. I do it every single day, and I really, 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 really try to live by it. So the words that I'm speaking are not matching my real thoughts and wishes and my goal for life, etc., etc. So there's going to be a big kind of conflict there between who I am and what I'm feeling and actually what I'm saying, which is important, as you'll see later. Sorry, I'm seeing if that's someone else. And I'd become quite aggressive and combative with them because if I can't work, I don't eat. So it was becoming a real issue. The other thing about the autoimmune disease, which is Hashimoto's, which is what this is the self attacking the self. The other important thing that had been going on for me is that I have celiac disease. I've had it since birth, which is an autoimmune disease. And it means that I can't eat wheat or gluten. And if I do, I get bloated, sick. It's very dangerous if you do it long term. So I'd started to become a little bit bloated and feeling heavy and tired and really not myself. And I have been sort of addicted to the gluten-free lagers that they now do. And over the summer, a nice cold lager after tennis and all of that had become my favourite thing to do. And I think that I kind of knew, but I was really denying that was having an effect on me. And the thing about all of these new gluten-free products is, before it had to have absolutely no gluten in. Now the law has changed so that you can have 15 to 20 parts per million of gluten and still call it gluten-free. And I know that's minuscule, but for someone who's intolerant like I am, that's still going to be affecting me. So there's that going on as well. And so I feel the thing to do then is to change my diet completely, because this is metabolism. So on the outside, on this level as a body, is to change my diet, to cut out the gluten-free foods even, and see if I can make a difference to it myself. And the doctor's been really good. He's allowing me to test before. Then I'm going on a juice detox next week, where he's going to let me test after and see what the difference in the levels are. Okay, so my favourite exercise is the letter exercise, where you write out. So because this was my family, I thought, right, I'm going to write down, I'm going to write a letter to my family. You never send it, it's just for you to get all the emotions out. So I'm writing this letter, swearing in it, and I'm really letting rip and everything, and like this. And then it turned to this really angry letter to God. And I'm thinking, whoops, because now, you have to think that your parents are the gods of your world on this level as such. They provide for you, they protect for you, they created you as such. So where I'm angry with my mum, really I'm angry with God. And I found myself going back to when I was suicidal, saying, I'm doing my best, I try every day, I'm doing what you asked me to do, I'm forgiving, I'm doing this, and why you're not listening to me, you're not helping me. And it was just this real rant of hatred and venom and everything else. And I was writing things like, you're selfish, you're shallow, you don't want to be with me, you're cold, you're hard, dismissive. And it went to, I don't want to be here anymore. And it really keyed back to when I was suicidal, which got me into all of this work. And then it really hit me like a brick that all of the work I've done has been for nothing. Because if I'm now back to when I was depressed and suicidal in that moment, then what's all this been about? It's been for nothing. It's been worthless. It's made no difference to me whatsoever. Now you have to understand this is only in this moment. I've really allowed myself to go there. It's not really how I think about the world. But in that moment, I keyed right back into that. And so I'm saying the same things to God. Help me. Tell me what you want me to do. Are you even there? Is this a great big con? Am I just trying to make my life feel better? Just feel a bit happy while I'm here, and then I'll die and come back and it'll all be... So real sort of crisis of faith. And it ended with this, hear me, see me, answer me. And then the next big thing that hit me was, all I know how to feel is pain. And then that keyed me, for some reason, into my gut. and now my gut is talking to me. Because, so the gut, the sacral chakra, is about family relationships, emotions. We talk about gut feeling, instincts. So that's what that area relates to. And it's linked to the throat chakra. Okay, so now this gut starts to speak to me. Let me just tell you before and let me just say it was like a child speaking. It's like a child speaking. So when I realised all I know how to feel is pain, I realised that's how my gut has always felt. Because from 4 weeks, in those days, they used to put cereal in the milk, and I've now discovered I'm allergic to milk as well. My mother was poisoning me. So all the gut has ever known is poison, pain, attack, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Now, you have neurons in your gut. This is why it's called the third brain. Neurons in your heart, neurons in your brain. So this gut is a personality. It's a consciousness. So is your heart, so is your head. We think our consciousness comes from our brain. What makes that any difference to that if you've got the same amount of neurons in it? Neurons are the cells that think, cause thought, etc., etc. So this little consciousness, this brothers, 3 brothers again, your brothers, yeah? So this brother starts to talk to me. Now, I was undiagnosed for 11 years, so this gut was just being assaulted continuously. And for a long time I was ignored and dismissed, as it was schoolitis. She doesn't want to go to school because they didn't, it's very rare then, there was only 2,000 people in the country, they didn't know anything about it, and I certainly wasn't tested for it. And I was at the hospital, every year, nothing would ever change, nothing was ever. So this gut has really suffered. This brother has just been attacked and poisoned. No wonder I feel victimhood. No wonder my whole life is being victimhood, because it's been attacked continuously. Okay, this is talking from the gut's point of view. Yeah. So when I was looking at the Louise Hay work, she said it's sensitivity to criticism, which was really strong with me when I was a child, searching for male particularly, but approval, which is a big theme for me, or was, and false laws. A false law is an unenforceable law, like you should be on time. If we agreed to meet at 12, you should be there. For me, that's a law. That's important, to respect each other. I'm always early wherever I go, never ever late unless it's out of my control, completely out of my control. So for me, unenforceable laws are really important, the right thing and all of that kind of stuff. But this is what I was accusing my family of, wasn't it? Like, all of these things that, criticising me, they don't care about me, they're ignoring me, they're not acknowledging me, they're dismissing me. And as we know, when you blame, I'm blaming my family, all the fingers point back to you, because, all attack is self-attack. So, as we said, it's a self-attack in a self. That's what an autoimmune disease is. But if you are one whole, that's impossible, isn't it? And if you're not a body, as the Course tells us we are, then that's impossible, isn't it? So it's indicative that A, this is illusionary, even though it feels really real. And when you dream, even though you're dreaming, you don't know you're dreaming. If someone comes up at you with a knife, you're going to run and have the full-blown panic attack. So in this dream, this is real, and and again, because we have this parts of us, it's this attacking this circle of fear attacking this pseudo self, if you like. So when you're a baby, all you are is a feeding machine, basically, isn't it? You eat, you excrete, you eat, you excrete, especially for those first weeks and months. So all I knew was that I was being poisoned from 4 weeks old. You have to also remember that at that time, up until 18 months, 2 years, you don't have a sense of self. Baby can't recognise itself in the mirror as a separate entity. So I am also my mum. So therefore, not only am I a victim, but I'm also the perpetrator. because I'm part of my mum that's poisoning me. No wonder it's the self attacking the self. Does this make sense? So I'm the attacker, the attacked, and therefore that's going to create confusion in my brain, because really you can't be both. Am I the attacker or I'm the attacked? I can't, you know, because I feel whole at that point. So the brain doesn't know what to do with that. So that almost gets put on the to-do tray for later, like now. My mum is the God of my world. So now I've got God attacking me. It's God's out to get me. So you can see that I'm being attacked from every angle. This is the story of my life. Everyone's out to get me. That was the phrase of my life, you know, until my depression. Everyone's out to get me. Nothing ever goes right for me. Nobody loves me. So, but she's also my life giver. And God's also the life giver. So again, we've got another confusion here. Well, are you giving me life, or are you trying to take my life away? What's going on here? Again, I can't reconcile that, so I have to park it, if you like. So now I've got a triad of confusion, injustice, because I'm not doing anything. You gave birth to me, you created me, I'm not doing anything, I'm just eating what you're giving me, receiving what you're giving me. And so there's confusion, injustice, and a huge victimhood. So the voice of my gut, the third brain, is not being heard, is not being believed, is in constant pain, has a continuous negative chatter, and is being questioned as a liar because no one believed me. There's the blame in me of mum and God, the God, and there's the blame of the self, because at that point there's no separation within me. I am everything and everyone. So even the doctors who accuse my mum of not looking after me are accusers of me, and not believing her, not believing me, all of this kind of stuff. There's a loss, so that equals a loss of trust in myself, others, and God. So no wonder I've always been separated from God, not wanted to go anywhere near there or anything. And what was that saying? But now as an adult, I'm starting to poison myself with the gluten-free lagers and things, even though I know, there's a part of me that knows I shouldn't be doing it. I'm still doing it. I'm now attacking the self. And I'm God of my world now. So, you know, Christ is now attacking me. It's just like, attack, poisoning myself. So what am I saying? I don't care about myself. I don't care about you. I don't care about myself. So no wonder it starts to, you know, speak up and shout and scream at me. And remember what the doctor said. The emotions, you're not hearing the message. The message is not getting through to the brain. This is what this is. The message isn't getting through to the brain. You couldn't be any more clearer, could it? This message isn't getting through to you, isn't getting through to your brain. And the letter to God was my gut talking. But this time, it's the first time that I listened to my gut ever. And realised it was a consciousness. Because if it's got neurons, it thinks. So this was the first time that I honoured it. I recognised my brother. I didn't reject my brother. I didn't attack my brother. This was the first time that I heard its voice. Does this make sense? Any questions before I go on?
No.
I'll get through it quite quickly. So then I did it from the point of view of my mum, because obviously I am my mum at the point that all this starts. So my mum, as me says, I was always doing the best I could to help you. She wasn't deliberately poisoning me. She's innocent. She was doing what your health visitors and everyone else did. You put cereal in the milk to settle the baby, and we didn't know what we know now, that, you know, it's dangerous and it creates all these alleged autoimmune diseases. So where I'm blaming her for poisoning me, and this is blaming her for poisoning me, I have to reconcile this with the truth that my mum's truth is different. She was trying to help me. She was caring for me. She was looking after me. That's an act of love, isn't it? She was fulfilling her function to provide and protect me. She herself was powerless because she didn't know what was going on. She didn't know what else to do. She did what they told her to do. All she knows is she's got a screaming baby 24/7. Now, my mum's a young mum as well, and my sister is only 2.5 years older than me. She lives in the 14th floor of a block of flats where the lift never works, and in those days, you know how big the prams were. So my dad's out drinking all the time and absent. So can you imagine her life, how powerless and depressed and upset and angry she must be feeling, and lost herself and confused. Now remember, her feelings are now my feelings as well. So like, no wonder my life is so negative. My thoughts about everything is negative. She received unfair blame because they were saying she wasn't feeding me. They were saying, you know, even like, they didn't suggest this name, but you would call it now Munchausen by proxy. Are always taking me to the doctors, always telling there's something wrong with me. You know, why am I screaming all the time? She's a bad mother. She's not, you know, doing this, that and the other. That's what she got. So how's she going to feel about that? Victimhood, isn't it? Injustice. No wonder those were big key things for me as well. Now, then that's going to develop into huge frustration and blaming of me. Because I'm the problem, aren't I? The baby's the problem. If only I'd shut up, if only I'd, you know, go away or whatever. So I believe then this is what sets up the avoidance of me, the disconnect from me. Because what do you do when a baby's screaming all the time, you've tried everything, you can't do nothing, just walk away, slam the door and walk away, don't you? So that rejection, that avoidance, I think is where I feel she never loved me. She doesn't pay attention to me. My memories of her, God bless your mum, is lying on the sofa sleeping, and us trying to wake her up and can we have something or do something, and her just going, no, leave me alone. And one of my memories is going back to the 14th floor and asking to come in, and she said, no, go away and play till 5, till tea time, whatever it was. Now, you know, when I stand in her shoes, I completely understand it. Because she worked part-time as well. She, you know, she was like superwoman. But this is what I think has set up my belief that she doesn't see me. She doesn't pay any attention to me, which is rejection, etc. Is because she learned to avoid the problem. Because remember, this is going on to I'm 11. Again, she might have a mistrust. Am I making it up? The doctors are saying I'm fine. No one's finding anything wrong with me. So therefore I must be making it up, mustn't I? It's all the logical conclusion is. So I don't think I became the invisible child as a strategy for success, which is what I used to think. I think I just realised I had become invisible to her. Does this make sense? So it's a real turnaround in a lot of the misperceptions that I had. I think it's a bit of both, to be honest, but okay. And then I thought, okay, what do I say as the baby? What would I be saying and experiencing? So I would understand, or I would be looking to understand what part of me always wants to attack me. Because I am not doing it to myself, and I am my mother at that point and God as such, so why does everyone want to attack me? What's that about? What am I doing wrong? There must be something intrinsically wrong and bad about me, just as a human being, that causes everyone to want to hurt me. Part of me that is continually moaning, negative, attacked and attacking, and I'm trying to rally against all this, as it doesn't feel like me, because you're born happy. So I'm born a happy spirit, and so all this attacking and all what's happening to me, etc., doesn't feel like me, even though I seem to be doing it to myself. where has God gone? Where did my mother go as my pseudo-God and God, who is allowing me to suffer like this through no fault of my own? I'm an innocent. Why? Where is he? Why isn't he stepping in and saving me? Again, that I'm doing my best. I am being the baby I'm supposed to be. This isn't my fault. What's happening to me? Who am I then if there's a part within me that is attacking me? Who am I then? You know, who is this part that has a different point of view to me? We now know it's the ego against the Christ or the Holy Spirit. But I never knew any of this for the first 40 odd years of my life. So who is this inside me that wants to attack me all the time? How can I ever escape that person? I'm always going to be a victim. I've always got to be on guard. No wonder I'm super anxious and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. Who's ever going to help me? There's no way out. Who's ever going to help me? And at the point of my potential suicide, maybe it was the gut, not me, that wanted out. And now it had been joined by a hardened heart. Because remember, these chakras go through the heart. They speak through the heart. Now this is really interesting because what I was given is there are only 6 chakras. Now I know this goes against everybody else out there, but this is what I was given. This heart is part of this heart. The voice belongs to the heart, not the head. And I know I've given my voice to my head. Very rarely do I consciously speak through my heart. And I've had that thing where I put my heart away and, you know, for protection and became, I've talked to you before about becoming the robot. When I was 14, I used to have dreams where the skin would peel off my face and there would be a metal face, you know, with the false eyes and things like that. And I never understood it, and I understand it now. It was saying you had become a robot, emotionless, because I cut off the heart and cut off the gut where the emotions are. So this had become my veil. Because this was all dismissed, not listened to, not acknowledged, not seen, not heard. And this became everything. If you look at my life, my career, it's all been knowledge. It's all the voice that, you know, I teach and all of this stuff. So I haven't been a whole person. I've been ignoring my brothers, cutting my brothers off, or rejecting my brothers, all of that kind of stuff, which of course talks about. So what I realised is, and again I'll go into this more in the Free Brains, is that the brain deals with the thoughts, the heart is the brain of feelings, and the gut is the brain of behaviour, because we act from, or we should act from our gut, shouldn't we? Our gut instinct. I just knew what to do. I felt it in my gut. So for me, I think what has happened is, if we come back to this diagram, is that this was my gut. The circle of fear, all the subconscious fear, hate, injustice, attack, it's resided here in my subconscious, in the circle of fear, and was now being projected onto the pseudo-self. But this, the bit that's usually above the veil, that we, you know, have to consciously try and access, if you like, this was nowhere. So if you look at this as my body, you know, here's my gut, here's my heart that's been cut off as well, and here's my head. And some of you remember me keep saying, I know God, I know everything there is about the course, I know it all, but I don't feel it. Do you remember me saying that? I just don't feel it. And that's why I got baptised and tried to go down that road, I believe now, is I was trying to feel a connection somehow to God. Because this had all been, unbeknown to me, cut off. This was my veil. Any questions?
And why didn't you stay with that belief then, when you got baptised and all that?
Because I realised what I was actually trying to do wasn't what I thought I was trying to do at that time. And as you know, I'm still doing things on the Bible and reading the Bible, and I think that was one of the things as well. It needed to push me to read the Bible, because the Bible, again, is Jesus' teachings, isn't it? Especially the New Testament. But I needed to learn things through that. I think I needed to demark from the old self and the new self, which is what the baptism is about, because it really did for a while turn me into a different way of thinking and a different way of approaching all of this. I never left the course, but as well. But I don't need the church, and the church had become something different. I did speak about it at lunch. I won't go into it now. I'll tell you privately later. So that's that. Any other questions?
Could I ask you,
Yeah,
Theresa, in your experience, because I agree particularly with the heart sort of, and the gut, you're saying about the gut, but the heart certainly for me, what advice would you give for opening up though? So you said you heard from, what sort of, would it be through meditation, or how can you sort of, is it stopping and listening, or what would you advise?
Yeah, well, there's loads of, can I come to that in a minute? Because I am going to go through that, but I don't want to get out of sync, because then I'll go off track, and you know what I'm like, I'll never know where I am. But I am answering that as we go along. Okay, so let me come back to this. So there's 3 almost brothers within you, okay? And I believe now, there's 6 chakras. This heart and this heart are one. So we should always be speaking from our heart, not our head. So one of the things to answer your question is, so what I've been trying to do is, say like at tennis, when I hear I've gone into my head, I physically, in my head if you like, consciously is the word, put myself back into the heart and say, this doesn't belong to you, head. You can't play tennis. This belongs to my heart. Gut, sorry. Tennis I play with my gut, because it's a behaviour. So what I do is I kind of shut the head up and go to the gut, which doesn't have a voice as such. But when I play without any words, I play so much better. I've been on fire, I tell you, it's amazing. But every now and again it'll come back and it'll want to say something, and it's just for me just putting myself back to the gut. That's for tennis. And if I'm doing it in my life, say like I say something negative or I think something negative, then I say, no, this voice doesn't belong to you. Even if I thought it, this voice doesn't belong to you, it belongs to my heart. And I go back to my heart. And that really works for me. It's the only conscious way I can think of doing it. Obviously, when you're meditating and things like that, you can just go to that place and listen to it. This started for me by just writing out, and a letter started off as my family, and then just went to all these places. And because I hear that voice so clearly, I get that revelation all of the time, as I'm sure all of you do or will when you really, really listen and honour it. It will tell you where to go and what to do. That's the Holy Spirit. That's what it's there for. Higher self, guide, whatever you want to call it.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
So you had
I had a nudge, yeah.
Did you?
To come back, yeah.
Did it say why or anything?
No.
Interesting. And this again, might make you help to understand your boys, and even though they're over it now, but what all that is about, because that will help you as their mother as well to understand not only them but yourself, because they were you at some point.
Yeah.
So let's just pause and look at the chakras. So for those who don't know, we've got the crown chakra here, you've got the third eye here, and this is your pineal gland, and this relates to your pituitary gland, third eye, interesting. Throat, or I think mini heart,
You've got the thymus gland here.
Yeah.
Which they call a higher heart.
Oh, right, but again, it's part of the one
gland
heart
system, so it's the thyroid, the thymus.
Which is interesting, because in my talk on the book of Revelation, it talks about Thyatira being the prophet, a false prophet who encourages everybody else to follow her guidance and her revelations, etc. But she's a false prophet, and she leads them all the wrong way, and they have a chance to repent. So again, it's words, isn't it? Prophet, it's words, power of words. Solar plexus, sacral root. And thank you for that. So I felt, I don't have any problems with my crown and my third eye. I felt that was open when I meditated and sort of scanned through. And my solar plexus was fine, and the root. And so that left me with these issues: the throat, the heart, and the sacrum. Which made me laugh, because how much more obvious can it be, that these are the three you need to work on now. Anyway, the thyroid and the heart are one. The thyroid is the voice of the heart, not the head. And don't let the ego hijack your head like it has been doing, hijack your voice. And what's really interesting is God speaks everything into creation. Let there be light, etc., etc. So words manifest. Thoughts, intention, draw from the field. Again, I've done a big thing on this on Genesis. It's already on YouTube. So the thought is drawn from the darkness, the waters, the field, if you like. This is what Genesis says. God speaks it and then observes it, which matches with quantum physics, which I haven't got time to go into now. So this voice is really important. You give it to the right person, the right brother, because it's manifesting your life. So where I've given the voice, really cut out the heart, and the gut is talking for most of my life, and then I give the power to the head. This isn't the right owner of the voice. Now, also then I discovered that the Old and New Testament, especially Proverbs, is full of quotes about letting your heart speak. So, the heart of the wise teaches the mouth and adds learning to the lips. That's my favourite one. Couldn't be more clearer, could it? The heart of the wise teaches the mouth and adds learning to the lips. Here's your wisdom. Well, solar plexus is a place of wisdom as well. Again, it has to come up through the heart, doesn't it? As man thinketh in his heart, so is he, Jesus said. And the abundance of the heart. The mouth speaks from the abundance of the heart. So just 3 I picked out there. So he's always telling us that the heart is key. The heart is everything. It's only in these, this century, that the head has taken prominence. It's all about how much you know, isn't it? Your education, your mental ability, all of that. We've completely lost touch with the heart. And I know that's not new information, but I think what's new information is you've got to voice the heart. You've got to voice the heart, not the head. And I know that sounds wishy-washy, you only speak of love. It doesn't mean that. Because the heart sometimes doesn't speak of love. Sometimes there's tough love. You have to tell people, a harsh story, but that's better than enabling them to continue their behaviour, for example. You have to speak truth. Truth is sometimes hard to hear, isn't it? And so that I think is the real key there. And in the course, it says love speaks. You couldn't get it any more clearer, could you? Which always makes me laugh. Okay, so the first three chakras are about your material, physical world. And then these top 3 chakras, or 2 chakras if you like, now, are about your spiritual self as such. So I've started to listen to my heart. So my heart said, I've been bombarded on all sides with pain. Because it's been getting the nagging, horrible victimhood voice of the gut, and it's also been getting all of that rubbish from the head. It's also been cut off, lonely, sad, rejected, all those words I said earlier. The heart is feeling those too. You've ignored me. was the big one that led me here. You've stolen my voice, I heard so clearly, which then led me to all what I've just been telling you. You've stolen my voice. You've cut me off from my brother and my Father, God, love. Because I'm not allowing it to feel, I'm not allowing it to fulfill its function, I'm not allowing it to do anything. I'm powerless, friendless and alone, which is all the words that I was saying I, Theresa, am, but blaming everyone else out there for it. When really, those voices were the voice of my gut and my heart, I believe. I've been crying out to you for so long, but you only had thoughts and care for yourself. That's me told, isn't it? But if you think about what I've done, again, no blame because I didn't realise I was doing it, but that's exactly what I've done, isn't it? It's not falsely accusing me, it's telling me the truth. This is how it feels, this is how it's been experiencing life. You even dismissed me because through the course I was saying the body doesn't exist. The body doesn't exist, don't worry about it, don't worry about anything physical. Which is true, but not on this level. So this is my big kick up the bum. You know, you got the wrong message again. And then it says, you even dismiss me. The body doesn't exist. I do. It's going, I do. I do. Because it's consciousnesses. 3 consciousnesses should be coming together in the heart and being expressed through the mouth, through the voice. That's what should be happening. The receiving, the giving, the receiving, the giving. Then I'm a whole, holy person as such. You cut me off alone and lost, voiceless, powerless, and that's an injustice. And then it led me on to thinking about, so that's from 4 weeks though. So why where did this start from? What was the cause of this? So on the physical cause, yes, putting the milk and the cereal in and I'm allergic. But how have I become allergic? It's still the self attacking the self. It has to start somewhere, doesn't it? It has to have a cause. And pre-4 weeks, I mean, where's it come from all of a sudden? Because the manifestation of the autoimmune disease is the effect. So what's the cause? So that started me off thinking, and then came on to this ancestral work that I'd done ages and ages ago, years ago. And it was a book about, I was outraged because somebody was talking about this book in the class about how all women hate men. And I thought, that's not true, what a load of rubbish, I have to read this book. Anyway, to my astonishment, it had a lot of truth in it. Anyway, it was talking about how patterns repeat in your life. So a father that gets, this was the example, a father that gets divorced at 11 finds that his son at 11 starts to play up and starts to kind of manifest the same themes that he felt when he got divorced. So it was really interesting. And I thought, oh, let me look back through my patterns and stuff. Cut long story short, what I found was in our family, and it's relevant, this is why I'm telling you, is that we've got a ancestral pattern. I only could go back to my grandmother's about losing the second child. So my mum's mum had a baby, my mum, and then very soon she was pregnant again out of wedlock, and in those days it was really bad and she couldn't look after herself and the baby, and this man who had lost his wife agreed to take her on, but not the baby. Take my mum but not the baby. She tells you a lot about him anyway. But anyway, so my mum remembers going into which must have been the adoption place, she didn't know obviously, and leaving the baby there and coming out without it. Now, my mum is very young at this point, maybe 2, something like that. So remember, she's still my nan. So how is she experiencing that? She is learning that at any point, the second child, which was female, which is interesting as well, as you'll see later, is rejected, is abandoned, is sent away. Okay. No one explains to her what's going on, and my mum didn't know for a long, long time. She suddenly kind of had memories, and my nan would never talk about it. So it's only after my nan died that she was able to find her. So if you think about it, so she's feeling now frightened that she might be, because she doesn't know it's the second child syndrome. She just knows you could be taken somewhere and left, and you lose your mum and God of your world and everything. She would have felt how my nan felt. All that pain and suffering and all of that kind of stuff, fear of now losing that second child, all of those kinds of things.
And I believe it gets stored in the cells of the body. It gets physically stored in the body,
yeah.
and then in the DNA.
It does.
And then when they have a child, that it's already born in them.
It is.
So we've got unworthiness runs
Yeah.
down the line.
Yeah.
Because it's born into you
Yeah.
before anything's happened.
And even
the minute
science.
they're born, it's born in them.
Yeah. And even science accepts that now.
Yeah.
It's called epigenetics.
Yeah.
Where things go through, even the fear of famine. Where epigenetics starts, I hope I quote this correctly, is, I think it was Danish, no, not Denmark, where was it? Holland. And where their women were starving at the end of the Second World War, and then obviously got back after when the food was plentiful, but their babies then had a predisposition to put on extra weight to guard against the famine. So the famine was recorded, or the fear of famine was recorded within the cells, passed through the DNA. And now there's extensive work, they do extensive work on mice and that. So one of the horrible ones I was reading was the mother mice, they would, before they were pregnant, they would give them electric shocks in their feet, right? When there was, I think, a certain sound, they would then have an electric shock in their feet. And then they would let them have litters and that. But the pups, are they called? The baby mice would also have fear of that sound, even though they'd never been shocked, because it had been recorded. Because it's revolutionary, isn't it? Avoid snakes. Snakes can kill you. So that gets bred right through the line. Always avoid snakes. They're born knowing to avoid snakes, for example. So, so that's on my nan's side, my mum's side. My other nan had 2 children, a boy and a girl. My dad's the oldest. And when they got divorced, my dad, the oldest, went with my nan, and his sister went with her husband at that point, and was never seen again by my dad. Right? He kind of wasn't even sure if it had ever happened as such. So again, there's a loss of the second female child. Again, my dad, to a certain level, records that, feels the mum's pain, all of this. So then come to my mum. Now, my mum had a miscarriage after my first sister, and then there's me. So again here, because it's subconscious, because it's programmed into you, does she start to fear that I will be taken away, or she'll be forced to give me up, and therefore doesn't bond with me as a protection? You know, if she bonds with me and then that happens, it's going to be a lot worse. So if you don't bond with me, then you know, it's going to be less painful.
Imagine you having that kind of unknown illness would have made her think that you could possibly at any time
lose
you as well.
Yeah. So all of that going on, and me knowing that, am I going to be rejected as the second female child? Am I going to be, you know, disregarded or whatever? And then, so that was my mum, and then. So there's 3 girls. So my older sister, I was the first one to have a child, had loads of miscarriages, and then I had a son. And then my second child only lived for an hour and died. So there it is again, loss of the second child. My older sister was the next to have children, had her first daughter, and then rejected the second daughter, not like physically, but mentally, I now believe, had extreme postnatal stress. And so almost kind of mentally rejected her. And I think it's that failure to bond again, that fear of bonding in case because the pattern says you're going to lose the second child in some way, shape or form. And then my younger sister, I think, knowing this, has her first son and then doesn't want any more children. Now, I can't prove to you any of that is true, but it's interesting. If I could go back further, it would be interesting to know how far that goes back. So we've got all of that playing out. So if you imagine, I'm born as a female second child, already knowing the highly likelihood is I'm either going to be given away, rejected, or, you know, disowned in some way, shape or form, if I live. And I know that. So it's very interesting, isn't it? Like how all of these things play out. And it's RNA is how trauma is inherited. And that's epigenetics, if you want to. It's inherited through the RNA. DNA is always held in the gene. RNA is like a photocopy that's made and goes through the body. So your DNA, to some degree, never changes, but it has to have an original in there that you hold on to, and then photocopies go around your system. RNA is like the photocopies. So I made some new rules for myself, which I won't go into now. Should we have a break before I do the next bit, the real bit about autoimmune? Okay, so now we're going to go on to just, again, just briefly talking about the autoimmune disease itself and how the course would look at this. As I say, I'm going to do a bigger thing on the free brains and autoimmune diseases, etc. But so just today we're going over just how the course looks at it. So because an autoimmune is the self attacking the self, the body attacking itself, it kind of goes out of control, if you like. It's like the course says, all attack is self-attack, okay? So the self hates itself. Again, that's indicative of having several selves within you, or a split brain. But the course would say it's impossible because one cannot attack itself. If this is an orange and it's the only thing in existence, how can that orange attack itself? It can't. One cannot attack. You need parts, one to attack the other. And it also says that you're not a physical body. This is an illusion, a dream, and therefore this shouldn't be possible on any level. And then really synchronously, again, because I've been doing this work, I haven't been reading, and then as soon as I started reading, again, I'm on exactly the right place. And it was talking about hate, and it says something, hate needs symbols because it doesn't exist. So hate doesn't exist as such. You know it's through hateful words or hateful actions or whatever it may be, like a swastika, the sign, you know, of hate, etc. And hate doesn't exist as such because it's an attack. How do you know if someone hates you? How do you know if you hate something? You are attacking it now in the way that the course uses the word, as in not love. So hate is actually attack, and attack, as we know from the course, is separation, and separation is sin. That's why we think hate is sin, because you've cut out all the middle bits, if you like. It says love needs no symbols, as love is everywhere and everything. So something that is everywhere and everything, you can't have a symbol for it, can you? Because you can just go, there it is, there it is, there it is, there it is. Does that make sense? Because that's a really important part to understand before we move on. Does everybody understand that? Just not for me, still awake. Okay. Now, it's important to understand, before I go on, course also says the ego seeks specialness. And special relationships are a huge part of the course. Now, the story of Lucifer, if you like, the angel of light, you know, is the epitome, who becomes the epitome of hate, if you like, evil. He fell out with God because he wanted God to see how special he was, how he became in love with himself. He was so beautiful and so great and so powerful and all of this, and felt very, very special. And God didn't acknowledge his specialness, because if you acknowledge specialness, you have now bought into separation. Because if I say you're special to me, paradoxically I've rejected everybody else, haven't I? And to reject is to attack. So even if I say, oh, I really like your jumper, someone might be sitting there going, why don't you like my jumper? What's wrong with my jumper? So, and that's a way of seeing that you've taken that as an attack. And now it might look like you're really special to me. We would be in a special love relationship. Okay, but that's not a good thing either, because I've just reinforced both of our separation by singling us out. I love you, and you're going to love me for that, aren't you? Ooh, you know, when you get a compliment or you feel special, all of that, you feel really good. Now, special is, again, the course talks about levels, doesn't it? That we shouldn't have these levels, because special is above the norm, isn't it? So, really, so a loving God would never ever make anyone more special than anyone else. That's why it says, you gave us all the same gifts. We're all the same, we're just a bag of cells, right? Or we're one mind, really. So any idea that you should be better than anyone, worse than anyone, or different in any way, you've bought into special love or hate relationships, which is a key part of the course that causes all of our problems, because you're separating yourself out from the one. This makes sense so far, yeah? Okay, now the throat, this is where we express all of the judgment and the differences and the specialness and all of this, isn't it? And specialness exists in the head, not the heart. Because love is unconditional. Love is everyone and everything. So specialness can only exist in the head, and this is why it's key for me today, is because then I'm going to manifest and speak and create, have the effect of, put the effect out of specialness, difference, whatever it may appear as. And if you think about I was thinking about conversation. If you think about what you talk about all the time, if you pay attention, we're always talking about differences. Because, say like in the desert where it's sunny every single day, the weather isn't an issue of conversation, is it? They say the Brits love to talk about weather because ours changes constantly. When you talk to someone else, you talk about what's going on in their life, as opposed to what's going on in your life. When we watch the TV, again, it's about other people, isn't it? And if we talk about that programme, you might have a different opinion or a different point of view on what's being said, etc., etc. So if you pay attention, a lot of what we talk about is differences. Now, the special hate relationship in the course means something is singled out, attacked, and again, thus the difference is there. So the whole thing about why judgment is important and these levels, etc., is because the real problem is not you being hateful or nasty or anything like that. The real problem is you have just separated yourself and that other person from God. Because there's now two. I like you, I don't like you. I like coffee, I don't like coffee. So it's a separation. And the sin, the whole sin, how it's used in the course, whenever you read sin, I suggest you read separation, that's the problem, that we think we've separated ourselves from God. We think that's possible on any level. And that's why the course says, you don't need to learn about love, you need to take away the barriers to love. And one of those huge barriers is our special love that the ego has here, teaches us here, is what love is. You love another, or you love yourself. Well, which part loves itself? Self in that's my book. So to love myself, there's the part that loves and the part that is the thing that is being loved. It's the separation. So it's a trick, isn't it? So this is the thing about love, you don't need to speak about love, because love is what you are, it's everywhere, it's everything. Well, I can't talk about it because there's nothing to talk about, because it's all the same. Does that make sense? It's like the weather being continuously sunny, there's nothing to talk about. Unless you want to say, oh, it's sunny again, which is just to talk about the oneness. In the same way, we can't talk about love, we don't need to, we don't have to. So even the special love relationship here is actually the same thing, something being singled out. I give you value and you give me value, and therefore we in some ways become interdependent as well, against everybody else. And we are the things that establish each other's worth then, not God. You don't have to establish worth. Your worth is established by God. It says that. And we know, though, because everything changes here, that eventually that is going to change. Because we change every minute of every day. We change what we say, what we see. Even, you might come here every Saturday, but the weather's different, where you're sitting is different, the clothes are different, what I'm saying is different. Everything is different. It's never, ever the same. So where's it going to go? It goes from a special love relationship into a special hate relationship, or nothingness, because hate doesn't exist. Like darkness doesn't exist. Darkness is absence of light, isn't it? Darkness isn't a thing. You can't create darkness. You can just cut the light out and darkness is the effect. But it's not a thing. So in some ways, the special love and the special hate relationship on one level are meaningless. Both of them are meaningless. They're nothing, because nothing can't create an effect. So they're not a cause. Without a cause, you can't have an effect. Without an effect, you can't have a cause. And again, the Course teaches us that. So both of these, the special hate and the special love, are barriers to the real love, the Christ self, who is God, who is Christ, and who is the Holy Spirit, because they are one. So anything that separates me takes that away from me. It's a barrier to true love, to the true self, the Christ self. Does that make sense? So, a quote, page 337, the special love relationship is the ego's chief weapon for keeping you from heaven. Because you can't go to heaven unless you're your Christ self wholly. The special love relationship, in which the meaning of love is hidden, is undertaken solely to offset the hate. Because if we only had hate, you'd quickly go against the ego and search for something better, wouldn't you? Something different. You'd stop listening to that one who's always attacking you, who's always telling you something bad. So it gives you an illusion of love, a special love relationship, to offset it, to balance it. So you'll keep playing its game. It's a trick, an ego trick. Page 338. Trying to live when you buy into special love relationships, you're trying to live with guilt. Now, when I read guilt, I always read the separated self. So you're trying to live with guilt rather than die from it. So you're trying to live with the fact that you're a separated self rather than die from it. Because, again, sin and the separated self. And one more quote. The special relationship is an attempt to bring hate into love. It's a trick, the ego trick, as I said before. And the last quote says, love is content, not form. So if I give you my tray of biscuits as an act of love, it's not the biscuits that are important, it's the act of love. So if she throws them back in my face, for example, that is still an act of love. If she hasn't accepted them, she hasn't received them, that's not important. It's the giving and the receiving of the gift, which is the gift back to me, the receiving back to me is that I get the joy from the act of love. I go back to one, communion back with God. So let's bring this round to the food now. Because, okay, so for my thyroid now I have to change my diet on this level, it seems, or that's what I'm thinking is the right thing to do. Now, if we think about our relationship with food, some foods you love, special love relationship. Some foods you hate or you don't like, special hate relationship. We call them good or bad, healthy or unhealthy, wanted or not. So these are, food becomes your, and drink becomes your symbols for a special hate relationship or a special love relationship. The clearest one is alcohol, isn't it? It looks like a special love relationship, but actually it's really a special hate relationship because it's damaging you on every level, isn't it? Because if you have to drink to extreme, you're running away from something, your escapism or whatever it may be. They become false idols. Oh, I must have chocolate, I love chocolate. The first thing I said when I realised, because I had allergy testing and one of the things I was allergic to is milk, and that's the end of dairy chocolate. I was like, oh my God, and melted cheese, the two things that I really love in my life. And so I'm hearing this thinking, oh. And then the other thing is things that are created or made, and that will become important in a moment. So the food has become a false idol, survival. It's related to our physical attack, for me, on my gut, judgments, these are all judgments, and that's sin, because it's all about separation. So here's the greatest ego trick of all time, telling you that in order to survive as a physical body, you must eat and drink. You must partake of my game of special love and special hate relationships. How insidious is that? You're looking at me like... Okay, so what is the ego's aim then? The ego's aim is for you to value the body and care about the body, which actually keys you into death. Because what happens if I don't take this seriously? Eventually the thyroid breaks down and then you die. So it's chasing me with death, isn't it? It's like another ego trick to make me feel like I'm a body, pay attention to the body. And for me it's really interesting because now it can't get me at tennis, the ego, because I've sorted all of those problems out. I'm really peaceful and playing great and all of that. It's like, oh God, where should I go next then? I've got to get her somehow. So no surprise that this then turns me towards the physical body. So the special relationship with food then is a barrier to love, to my own innocent and the Christ self that I really am. And I was talking to Elaine just there in the tea break, and she said, well, you can get tablets for that, and you know, that'd be easy. But then I've missed the whole point of the lesson. The whole point of the lesson isn't that, you know, because am I a real student of the course who believes this body really isn't real? You know, it's a manifestation of my thoughts, which is what the course teaches me. So am I going to do the course properly? Or am I going to take the tablets and the problem's solved, but it's not really solved? Because I'm still in my love-hate relationship with food.
You could say masking. The tablets will just continue to mask
the problem, yeah. And it'll come out in another way. That's what the course tells you. It'll just come out in another way. Now, how special does food make me with my celiac and now my, you know, thyroid problem? So now food is, you know, food has always made me the special one. Whenever I go out, I have to have a special diet. I have to have the special menu to look up what's gluten-free. You know, I'm on a special diet. So what an ego trick right from the beginning. It's how I found my special love relationship.
I've seen a lot of people with gluten issues, but, you know, they've created it because to keep their weight down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they've created the gluten issue now. I can't eat bread and all this stuff.
Yeah. Gain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because people have said to me before, why don't, you know, if you really believe your mind creates it, why don't you heal it? And there's a little voice in the back of my head said, no, it keeps you thin, keeps you slim, which it does. So, yeah, and again, that's an ego gain, isn't it? You know, there's a gain to it. Don't give it up. Don't give it up, and don't look for the problem, because then you'll find all this out. Because now I'm going to heal this.
But also, there's many benefit, like loads of little aspects of benefits to it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the main storyline, but then there's the little alley there of it keeps me slim.
Yeah. And all what we did just before, with all of you know what it's really about and how it was really created. How do you kind of get over this? So then the question mark, is eating then a manifestation of our want to be one? So if I'm in love with chocolate biscuits, am I really joining with the chocolate biscuit? The old traditions used to think, didn't they, that when they killed the animal, that the spirit of the animal, when they ate it, came into them, and their wisdom, etc., etc. So is this the ego's trick of, oh, you're joining with, you know, what God's created or whatever it may be? And it's really interesting because I've just done that whole big lecture on Genesis. And at the end of Genesis, when it's created the birds and the fish and the land and the earth and the stars and the sun, etc., etc., where it's always been like singular God. It creates animals. God creates animals first, and then it starts talking of we. Let us create man. Let us create mankind in our image. So who's the us all of a sudden? So what you have to understand is that because thoughts never leave the mind of the Creator, and everything is God's thought, so the birds and the fish and everything else, now they're part of His creative process. So we are actually created by the birds and the animals and the stars and everything else. How can you say we're not one? Because we were created from that oneness that was in existence at that point, and then we become that part of that oneness. So I was looking at, okay, what do I do now then? So I just cut out one of the meals, and I've been having 2 meals a day. And unbeknownst to me, that means I fast for 16 hours. I didn't make it a big thing in the ego and decide to do that. I just realised, because I'm only eating between 12 and 8, that I'm actually fasting for 16 hours. So fasting what I'm doing is breaking this special love-hate relationship, aren't I? Because I'm taking food away.
Aware, but if you've got autoimmune, that's exactly the period of time you should fast for.
Is it?
16 hours a day. That's what my sons naturally do that.
Yeah.
And then I've ended up coming across information that's
reinforces
if you've got autoimmune issue, that's how long to fast.
Brilliant. See, so and again, I didn't
consciously
choose that. I didn't know that. That is just how it's panned out, because I didn't make it a big issue. So what am I doing? I'm just following my guidance, just following my gut, or whatever you want to say. So I'm removing this power, aren't I? Because I'm taking away all of the symbols for the special hate or love relationship. And then what came to me as well was, because I've been doing the Genesis stuff, one of the curses or warnings that Lord God gives to Adam and Eve when they're going to be thrown out of the garden, He says, now you shall eat bread. So the difference between foods that are given and foods that are made, in the first part of Genesis, God says, and you shall eat the fruits of the trees and the fruits of the land, if you like, not animals. So really saying we're vegetarian. And everything is provided, isn't it? We don't have to do anything. The fruit will grow on the trees, and you know, if they're planted, the vegetables will grow out of the ground. That's what we should be eating. And again, intuitively, what have I been doing? Because there's basically nothing left to eat. I can't eat wheat and I can't eat dairy now, so I'm on a vegetarian diet. So again, intuitively, it's been given to me that really you should be eating a vegetarian diet and fasting for most of the time. Because otherwise food becomes too important. Food becomes a relationship that's separating you insidiously from the Christ self, the God. Yeah, so I'm suggesting that we make food neutral, and then there's the question of, do you even need to eat? There's lots and lots of gurus through history who have not eaten for 30 years and things like that. So do we actually even need to eat? Well, of course not if we're not a body. But we've bought into this big ego trick, haven't we, that you have to eat. I know there's someone who survived 72 days without food, who was lost in the Arctic or somewhere. So it's been done and it is possible. And then what came to me as well was the 40 days in the desert where Jesus was tempted. And one of the things he was tempted with is to make bread out of the stones. He was tempted by the devil. So he went 40 days in the desert fasting. Interesting, fasting. And then the devil's trying to get him to eat again. Now, why would that be in the Bible? Why would the devil use that to tempt him with? Desire, isn't it?
And again, lower chakra, where your trauma's stored. This
Yeah.
is the physical world. So people who eat a lot and especially emotionally eat,
Yeah.
it's filling a hole
Exactly.
in this
Yeah.
trauma
Layering
stored
protection.
area.
Yeah, 100%, yeah. And the other thing about Jesus and the church is he shares the bread as his body. What is that telling you? For me, because I can trace my life through the Bible, so bread for me is a temptation from the devil, isn't it? It's a special hate relationship, but then again it's a special love relationship because you're supposed to break the bread and share it. So again, this confusion and this kind of, different ways of thinking about it. And again, that's really, if the bread is the body, it's sharing the self, isn't it? Sharing the self, communion, communication in union, etc. So again, what God provides then is holy. The fruit, the veg, and the animals, although it doesn't say you should eat animals, but they're there. And everything else is what's made by us, isn't it? Yes, made from them, but made. So, and again, the course makes so many important points about the difference between what is created by God and what is made by man or whoever. And then page 339, across the bridge is your completion, for you will be holy in God, willing for nothing special, but only to be holy like him. So any will for anything special is going to keep you from crossing the bridge to heaven. Fantastic ego trick. It's so insidious, it's so clever, it's just like... So any which way you look around food and, these special relationships, etc., it's a way of keeping me from my Christ self. And seek not in the bleak world of illusion, seek not for completion it's talking about. Seek not for the bleak world of illusion, where nothing is certain and everything fails to satisfy. Because I have that biscuit, then I want another one. No matter how much I eat, I always want more, or the next meal, or whatever. I get the car and then I'm on to the next thing. I decorate my house beautifully and then I don't see it again. You don't actually see it, do you, after a week or so, and you're on to the next thing that you want or need. It's never ending because it will fail to satisfy you. So, in conclusion then, an autoimmune dis-ease, distance from ease, is the ego's attempt to keep you guilty, keep you as a separated self, and away from the wholeness from God and the true Christ self. So what we need to do is just to love the Christ self that you are. And then the final thing that I read, I think it was yesterday, is love is freedom. What does this special love and hate relationship do to me? It keeps me in bondage. I've got to eat something, and everything I eat is either a love relationship or a hate relationship. I can eat those special foods now, and those others I can't eat, my hate relationship. So it's just another way of separating me. So anything that is not love is bondage, because love is freedom. My work here is done.